My name is Sam Jenks, and welcome to another episode of The Way We Source, a podcast hosted by Kodiak Hub, where we share our talks with procurement practitioners, leaders, experts, consultants, content gurus, and people that we find downright inspiring, diving into the role that sourcing and procurement play in the way that we live. If you like today's episode, make sure to give the program a rating and a follow. Today, we have the pleasure of hosting a trailblazer in the sustainable procurement technology space, an avid business builder with a passion for procurement, a background as a former supply chain executive at DuPont. She is currently working as the CEO and founder of Kloopify, Daniela Osio. Daniela, big welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me. And wonderful introduction. Wonderful. I love it.
Please. I've done this once or twice before, but thank you. I appreciate it. We're super happy to have you. And I want to start with a question that we ask a lot of our guests, one that we find very interesting to understand the insides of, maybe also why it is that you made it into your way in sourcing and procurement. What exactly does sourcing and procurement mean to you?
So, sourcing and procurement, for me, sourcing is like the lifeblood of an organization. Without sourcing, it's like you're not feeding your organization. It is the first line in the success of a company. And the stronger the sourcing or the organization, the more empowered the sourcing group is, the better your company will work because they're responsible for your relationships with the suppliers, for making sure that you're getting the right quality and at the right price for the company. So I would say they're one of the most important functions inside of a company.
Do you mind just giving us a little bit of an intro to the business?
Absolutely. Happy to. So at Kloopify, we're a climate action platform for procurement. So many organizations, 92% of S&P 500 companies have publicly announced sustainability goals, but only about 2% of the sustainability projects that are going on inside of these companies are actually successful. And we believe a big part of that is because they're focusing on deploying sustainability in areas inside the company that are not maximizing the return on investment. So earlier you heard me say that I believe sourcing is like the lifeblood of an organization. But it's similar to you are what you eat, you are what you buy. And so as an organization, as you and I, we get nutritional value sheets to understand what are we putting into our bodies? Is it getting us closer or further away from our goals? But as an ex-procurement professional myself, I know we did not have that data. We didn't have the data. We didn't have the analytics, the visibility into the environmental impact of what are we putting into our organizations. And since procurement can be responsible for up to 80% of a company's footprint, it's vital that we understand not just, we understand the environmental footprint of what we're putting into our organizations. And so Kloopify gives you the data, analytics, and visibility into the environmental impact of all of your purchased goods and services so that you can, really drive scope 3 or impact reduction goals, maximize and actually increase your revenue because a study by McKinsey shows that sustainable companies have about a 6 to 9% higher profit margins and reduce your supply chain risk because as you can see out in the industry, there's a big regulatory, customer, and investor pressures to deliver on these sustainability goals. So we take those goals and turn them into action.
Now, Daniela, I know that you founded the business during the COVID crisis, which definitely was a bet, right? Not only a daring one, but a bet on yourself. What exactly made you found Kloopify during that time?
Yeah, I will say that starting a company, no matter when you start it, whether it's COVID or not COVID, is a huge risk. It's a bet. It's, you're making an investment on yourself and the things that you believe in. COVID gave us some unique opportunities being able to connect with people all around the world because we were all at home and people were more open to having conversations with you via Zoom because, well, that's how everyone was talking to each other. But really, what happened during the pandemic is I took inventory of my life. I said, are you doing the things that you want to be doing? The answer was no. The reason was fear. And that's just not a good enough reason because I've always had a dream of starting my own company and especially starting a company that was going to have a positive impact in the world. and nothing more, pressing than the current climate crisis that we're dealing with. And so as we were staying really connected with the world of procurement, I was sitting on the board or on the committee for the Institute of Supply Management Sustainable Procurement Committee. And I was hearing firsthand just the struggles that many companies around the world were facing when elevating procurement to the call of sustainability and to meet this new pressure that was building in the procurement space to deliver on some of these sustainability goals. And so as we continue to do customer discovery, and I reached out to my network to really understand what were they doing and what were the challenges that they were facing. It was clear that there was an opportunity here to continue to elevate the procurement industry and to answer the call that they were facing, which is, how can we deliver on some of these really ambitious and aggressive sustainability goals that pretty much every company around the world has set and committed to. And so the birth of Kloopify.
Very cool. And you mentioned something there that I think most founders could be able to recognize within their own journeys, right? The life of a founder, as they often say, the job of the founder is quite a lonely one. It's a lonely journey often. Even if you have co-founders around you, in the cases that businesses do. Do you ever feel this loneliness? And if so, how do you deal with it?
Yeah, I would say more than lonely, it's isolating
Mm,
because you are really just because one thing is you build a network, and that's what I did. We built a network of other founders and entrepreneurs in the area in my community here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and so that really helped with the loneliness. The part that was the most difficult was how isolating it was, and many times um, nobody had the answer and
mm,
nobody could help you through the challenges that you were facing because every company is unique. And while many stories have overlap, even in those overlaps there's differences, and so you just had to be okay with not knowing everything and still making a decision and being okay if it's right or wrong, but knowing that you have the ability to pivot, adjust, and reframe. And if you remember that you have the ability to continue to learn, and you give yourself the grace to learn, and that means making mistakes,
mm.
acknowledging them, and then growing from them. You'll be able to get through those moments of low. And my one other recommendation is that you really connect yourself with a really strong support system. The support system that knows that even when you're down and you're having your moments of doubt, that they will be the ones who bring you back up and say, just a little bit more, just a little bit more, just give a little bit more. You can do this. You got this. Many times that's all that we really need as founders is just a little support and encouragement.
That's super inspiring. And one of the things to go back to something you said before, right? The answer to why you had, not started your own business prior was fear, and that's just not good enough. I think that that's a super great way to look at things, right? Life is a hurdle that you can overcome as long as you put your mind to it in a lot of aspects. Super inspiring.
Absolutely.
I mean, businesses, there's a quote that I like from Parker Harris. Businesses can't afford to react to what their customers want. They need to anticipate their needs. Now, as a founder, you have continuous responsibility on your shoulders to ensure that Kloopify's product is delighting your customers. How is it that you make sure that this is the case?
Yeah, I mean it's a little bit of, I worked in the procurement space, so as a subject matter expert, I know
Right.
how processes are run. I'm very well connected to the industry. I've made it a priority to stay involved and give back to the procurement community as a whole. Speaking at conferences and just being really connected with how procurement has been evolving. So that subject matter expertise really helped me because I understood how they did business. Now it was the job of Kloopify was to make sure that we created a solution that was stupid simple to then be implemented in how they do business. And that starts by continuously going back and talking to, even if it's not clients, to prospective clients, to staying in touch with, what are their needs, what are their challenges, and what are the things that they're facing. And as a procurement professionals, we know that we are dealing with an abundance of things, whether it's inflation, force majeure, contract renegotiation, supplier renegotiations, and supplier engagements. There's just so much that we are responsible for as procurement professionals. And so I knew that no matter what we built, it had to flow seamlessly with the way that businesses and companies procure. And so really just staying in touch with the industry, staying, in touch with what the professionals are doing, and going out and asking questions. Don't be afraid to reach out to your old coworkers or people you've met at a conference and say, "Hey, we're developing X. Would you be willing to give us feedback on, what our hypothesis is?" Hear that feedback and then go back and adjust. You're not, the wrong thing to do would be to build in a bubble and to build in isolation, because there are so many things. Diversity in thought is what's going to make you really be successful.
I think that that's great insights. Also valuable for anyone working in just about any business, especially if you're looking to work within a tech venture. And I mean, the fact is that businesses can't afford to react to what their customers want. You do need to anticipate the needs, but typically you can anticipate the needs best if you're willing to listen, right? Two ears
Mhm.
and one mouth, as they say. I know that you've probably had, a lot of both successes, but also stumbles along your way. Founding a ProcureTech venture, as just about anybody that dares to make that leap does. What's one thing, if you have more than one thing that you could share with our listener base that you know now that you wish that you knew when you founded Kloopify?
Ooh, that's a great question, Sam. Um, don't fall in love with your idea, fall in love with solving a problem. So
Hmm.
many times as founders, we fall in love with this grand idea. Oh, I have this idea. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be incredible. It's going to save the world and solve all of these problems. And many times, if you fall in love with the idea and you don't have a critical eye on what you're thinking and being able to challenge your idea and being able to pivot your idea, um, you're going to fall into a trap of you think that you know the answer, and you are in love with the idea, so you don't pivot, and that means that you can fail, because many times the idea that you start off with is just a seed, but it grows into something else. And so being agile, nimble enough to realize that it's not the idea that you should be falling in love with. You should be falling in love with solving a problem. And your idea will be shaped by you solving a problem in the industry and providing a solution to a problem.
Love that.
And so that is something that I have even taken into heart here at Kloopify. As the journey of Kloopify has shifted and changed, we have pivoted many times, and that's because we didn't fall in love with our idea. We fell in love with solving a problem.
Super, super good tips there. Do you have additional concrete tips that you could be able to provide, as big or small as they could be, to anyone that's out there that's listening to this episode, that is either a ProcureTech founder or working at a ProcureTech venture, that are starting out on their own journeys or in the midst of their own journey?
I would say this might sound a little corny, but like, just don't give up. Don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on the dream. Half of the battle is just showing up.
Hmm.
If you are willing to show up, and if you are willing to give it your best effort and come in and just really try hard and go for it and talk to people and continue to work on your idea or your company, something will come from it, right? And that's something that a lot of people wouldn't do. Most recently here in Pittsburgh, we had an event exchange, PGH exchange ideas. And half of the battle that we said, as we saw throughout the weekend, was that people would give up on their ideas. As soon as it
Hmm.
became hard, as soon as there was a roadblock or a challenge along the way, it's like, oh, you throw up your hands and you just say, well, that's it. There's no answer. There's always a way to think through a problem and to push through those hurdles. And the more you push through those hurdles and experience the stress that comes with it, the more anti-fragile that you become. It's this concept of not just being resilient, but actually benefiting from the chaos and benefiting from the stress. You don't just want to be resilient. You want to be anti-fragile. You want to actually put yourself in situations of stress, because just like your body, the reason we work out is we put our bodies through stress. And we need to do that same thing intellectually. So constantly put yourself intellectually through battles and stress, because at the end of the day, you're going to be stronger, wiser, faster, because of those moments of stress. Then the other last little nugget here is, don't build in isolation or silo. Don't build and then test. Test and ask first, then build. It'll save yourself a whole bunch of money and a whole bunch of heartbreak. Many entrepreneurs think that, oh, I've got to build it, then I'm going to sell it. No, it's backwards. And sometimes it can be like against our kind of our being. We think, oh, we've got to build something and have something before we can sell it. But the truth is, you need to go out and test and get feedback and actually ask the questions of, if I build this, would you buy it?
Right.
And then if once you've gotten enough validation, then go out and build it.
Great tips. Great tips. I want to talk about the services that you guys have at Kloopify a little bit more in specifics about sustainable procurement. So let's pivot a little bit away from the life of a founder to a topic that I know that you're passionate about, which is sustainable procurement. With the fact that Kloopify solution is so laser focused on sustainability and sustainable procurement, why is it that you positioned yourself as a ProcureTech solution rather than a SustTech solution? I'm always curious about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, because, one thing that we noticed is, and especially in the procurement space, is we've got conflicting priorities based on different business objectives. So historically, we've, as a procurement organization, have really just used two primary things when we're evaluating suppliers and commodities, which is cost and quality. But now, as the pressure around sustainability increases, we have to be able to put cost, quality, and sustainability into the equation. But our job is not to tell you, as a subject matter expert in what you're procuring, that you should always pick sustainability, that sustainability is always going to win. Because at the end of the day, you're running a company and there's different factors that you need to be considering.
Right.
And so we believe that procurement, that Kloopify is just here to show you and to unlock the black box of what of the sustainability of your purchased goods and services. But at the end of the day, we're here to support procurement. We're not here to drive sustainability inside your organization if it's not a top priority. What we're here is to show you the business case for sustainability and give you the power and knowledge of knowing when it does make sense for you and your company, because then it's going to get you closer to your goals, and where it doesn't make sense for you and your company. A good example of this is, we did a case study with the city of Pittsburgh. And I can share this because the city of Pittsburgh uses public data. And so one of the things that we highlighted during their engagement with Kloopify was that they had 2,000 suppliers. And we looked over 50,000 transactions through all of those 2,000 suppliers. And one insight that they got was that only 10 suppliers were responsible for 80% of the company's footprint. So the CPO immediately thought, okay, this is great. I don't have to go after all 2,000 suppliers, try to get all of this sustainability data and try to understand, where are my trade-offs? I first need to have a laser focus on these 10 suppliers and these, 40 commodities that we buy from those suppliers. Because if I can just get those suppliers to reduce their footprint by 5%, it has a magnitude larger of impact. And so we're here not just we're here to support procurement, not to necessarily just drive sustainability. And that's why we identify as a ProcureTech solution.
Awesome to hear that. And I mean, we think that the space of ProcureTech is growing so much within its breadth of the areas that it's covering and the abilities that solutions have. And it's exciting to see even more solutions continuing to take the fight towards sustainability within the procurement function, because we also believe that it's a great opportunity to be able to impact sustainable development within the line, right? And the management of the supplier base is getting to the source of that. I'm
Yeah.
curious on your thoughts of the procurement function as it is. how do you believe that the function or a procurement team as a role player in an organization can best aid a business to reach its sustainability goals?
Yeah. So one thing I want to add too is that, procurement has been historically overlooked and kind of
Mm,
undervalued in many organizations. And, another reason why Kloopify is a ProcureTech solution is because um, procurement is owed and due a solution that's going to enable them for success. And they've got unique needs and wants as a procurement organization that have been underserved
mm,
as an industry. And so we believe that in order to make this successful and actually to enable sustainability to thrive, it needs to be operationalized. So
right.
it needs to be included in the day-to-day activities and how we do business. It can't be a top-down driven initiative. And in order for it to not be a top down initiative and for it to be really operationalized inside of organizations, you need to have tools and data and processes that are going to be able to be integrated seamlessly into how procurement is run today. And so, the one tip that I would give organizations is that you empower your buyers, your category managers, your executive buyers, and procurement professionals with the solutions and with the data and technology so that they can seamlessly integrate it into how they do business and be able to understand what are the trade-offs they're making. So it's no longer this, top-down chief sustainability officer is pushing this. It's really a situation where your entire organization feels empowered and to be able to make the right choices. And that's ultimately what's going to lead to success when it comes to sustainable procurement and for organizations to meet their goals.
Yeah, that's a super good point. Is empowering the procurement professional to be able to care and to make their own decisions about it. Super, super important.
Yeah.
When you are in this space, I'm sure that you meet a lot of procurement professionals, right? And you probably meet some procurement teams that are getting things right. And you also probably meet some procurement teams that are getting things wrong, I'm sure. Um, what do you think that procurement teams are currently getting wrong? I mean, you mentioned that kind of the top-down approach isn't any longer working, right? You need to empower the procurement team themselves to manage these initiatives within the line management of the supplier base and the supply chain. But if you could put your finger on it, what do you think procurement teams are currently getting wrong? And then adversely, what do you think that they're also getting right?
Yeah, I think that it's a little bit of carrot and the stick, right?
Mm,
Since this is tends to be, especially in the U.S., not so much in Europe, but in the U.S., it's a controversial subject. Let's say if ESG is here to stay, we can see that there's a push from a regulatory space from the SEC and their carbon disclosures, and
right.
in Europe, Scope 3 is not an if it's going to happen, but when it's going to happen. And so, what I think some organizations are doing wrong is that they're kicking the can down the road and they're waiting for the stick to come down. And so I like to say it's a carrot and the stick because what organizations that are focusing on integrating sustainability in procurement and elevating and empowering their procurement departments are the ones that are recognizing that if they are the first movers and if they begin to drive innovation in a time of macroeconomic uncertainty,
Mm,
they are going to be the winners on the outside once we kind of move through this phase in time. And so the ones that are already looking at technologies that are hiring people to specifically address this need inside of organizations that are recognizing that this can no longer be a top-down request, but this needs to be something that is actually driven by the doers, the everyday people. They are going to be the ones that are going to benefit not just from a cost reduction and a supply chain disruption reduction, but from a revenue generating perspective.
right.
Because I mentioned earlier, a study by McKinsey shows you that sustainable companies and companies that focus on sustainability have a 6 to 9% higher profit margin. So there's money to be made for doing the right thing and catering to Gen Z and millennial buyers. Because even through the inflation that is happening currently, millennial and Gen Z buyers are willing to pay a premium on sustainable products. And that premium is usually around 10 to 15% higher than, a competitor. But if there are claims of sustainability that are backed by data, because we don't believe in greenwashing, if it's backed by data, people are willing to pay more for it. And so you're either going to get the carrot, your company's going to benefit, you're going to come on top because you're addressing it, or you're going to get hit with the stick. And if you get hit with the stick, it may mean that you aren't here for, you will no longer, be competitive, and you'll become obsolete in an industry that is moving in that direction.
So, I mean, how do you get businesses to stop kicking the can, the proverbial can down the road then?
Yeah, so I would say, and this is a thing that I tell a lot of founders that are starting, sustainability companies, which is show them the business case. They are
Right.
companies. They are there to make money. They are there to, continue to provide value to you and I. But at the end of the day, it's a company, and a company is there to make money. And so if you can show them the business case of why they should do this, not just because it's the right thing to do,
Right.
but because there's money to be made, then that brings more people to the table, right? Then you have your CFO who's like, wait, there's money to be made. Then you have your CEO that's like, well, it helps because our brand isn't going to go down, and our,
Right.
our shareholders are going to be happy because we're going to be generating more money. And then as a procurement professional, you come in and you are the hero of the story. And so this is one of the main things that, at Kloopify that we're passionate about, is we're passionate about continuing to elevate the procurement industry and the procurement professional. Because if we can show up and deliver on these sustainable procurement goals,
Yeah.
we will continue to go up the ladder and enter into boardrooms and really be able to drive strategy at these companies, because we'll be able to, we'll have increased proof in our track record that we belong at that table. As procurement, we belong and we deserve to be at that table.
Yeah, so important. And also that the business case isn't just tied to savings, but also tied to gains, right? How can you be able to strengthen your brand position contra competitors and drive top line revenue? It's essential to the business case. So I think that those are super great points that you've made as well. I wish we had more time together, Daniela, but now we're coming towards the end of the session, a part where we get to hopefully get to know Daniela Osio, not only the founder and CEO of Kloopify as a ProcureTech professional, but also as a person. Quick fire questions, one word
Okay, here we
to
go.
one sentence answers, if that's okay with you.
Let's do it.
Let's get into it. All right. So, the
Mhm.
beaches or the mountains?
Mm. The beaches.
All right. You have a vacation, all expenses paid. You're leaving tomorrow. Where are you heading?
Vacation, all expenses paid. We're leaving tomorrow. Where am I heading? I am heading to Thailand.
All right. Very nice. And the last one, we have a saying in Swedish, paradrätt. It means kind of the dish that you feel comfortable making just about anyone that comes over to the dinner. You know you're going to impress them. What is your
Mhm.
paradrätt if I'm coming over to dinner?
Um, a seafood like soup, like a nice seafood soup.
Very nice. That fits in very nicely
Mhm.
with the Scandinavian kind of theme of this podcast, as well as we're big fish soup eaters in Scandinavia. So
Love it.
thank you so much for
So next
being.
time, Sam, when I have you over for dinner, I'll make sure to chef it up.
If I'm ever in Pittsburgh, absolutely. So I'll
Absolutely.
stop by. Thank you so much for your time today on today's episode. If people want to get in touch with you or learn more about what you're doing at Kloopify, how do they do so?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find us at kloopify.com. Feel free to find us on LinkedIn. We're on Twitter. And also, we are hiring. Our team is growing and scaling. So if you're interested in joining our team, make sure to look at our website and look at us up on socials. We are constantly posting new positions. And if you work in procurement and you're interested by our mission and vision, you see the value that a solution like Kloopify can bring, please reach out. Feel free to email me directly at Daniela at Kloopify, and we'll get started on this fun adventure. Thank you.
Fantastic. And that's another episode of The Way We Source.
Absolutely.
Super. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Richard.